is just gonna look crazy. Well, I worked out for 2 hours, so this is what it's gonna be. I have some kind of mixed texture situation going on that I don't really know about, like why it's doing that. Hi, how are you? Hey Zen, how are you? And give people like a moment just to get settled. I'm gonna kind of be all over the place today because I have a few things that came up today that I think are interesting and want to talk about with everybody. So, thank you. Um, yeah, I'm actually, I'm actually super tired. I don't know if you can tell. Like, I'm like what 4 days before my period starts, and so like I'm really fighting it. And today has been nonstop. I'm blessed. Don't get me wrong. Today was nonstop for a great reason, for a great set of reasons, but I'm like beat. Oh yes, I'm so happy to have you because especially because you're new. This is gonna be exciting. Um, so while I have just you guys, I'll just start with a quick overview about fibroids. Feel free to jump in, ask any questions at any time. I can see your questions. I'm gonna move around to a bunch of different things. There's a couple people I know who'll be joining us tonight who are probably gonna come in a little bit later. So for the newbie, let's talk about fibroids real quick. So uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growths that grow in your uterus, either on the inside or on the outside. Now, there is no documented medical cause. So it's really a bunch of factors that can cause it, meaning your genetics, meaning your environment, what you're eating, what you're putting in your body. I will say this, as women of color, we are far more prone to fibroids. And if you saw my statistics that I posted earlier, then you know how serious that is. When, 80% of African American women as of 2015 have fibroids. And remember, that's people that identify as African American. So if somebody is mixed with Latino, for example, and they're not identifying as African American, they're identifying as Latino, that's a whole separate population as well. So fibroids are different from endometriosis growths, are different from cysts, which is very important because some people think that fibroids are just cysts and they're not. They function actually more like cancer, but of course they're not cancerous, thank God. However, there are certain rare uterine cancers that mimic fibroids, so let me just throw that out there. And the primary course of treatment, honestly, for most doctors, at once they get to a certain size, is surgery. That's what you're going to hear. So that's an important piece to remember as well. Also, we need to remember the fact that fibroids can grow very fast. They can grow very slow. It depends on a lot of different factors. However, they do tend to have certain symptoms, but there are people who are completely asymptomatic. There are people who have no idea they have fibroids. They don't find out they have fibroids until they have an ultrasound because they're pregnant or something like that. But then there are the rest of us, myself included, who had or have serious symptoms. I had incredible pain, like incredible pain. Some people have that as the primary symptom, which prompts them to go to the doctor and get checked out. Some people have an excessive amount of bleeding. That was what happened to my mom. And anybody who's been on here before, you know the story about my mom. She almost died from hemorrhaging from untreated fibroids. So I'm very passionate about this, not just because of my mom, but myself included. I don't want women to suffer for lack of information. And there honestly isn't a lot of information or funding put towards fibroids, primarily because it's considered to be a gynecological disease that affects women of color. And this is the world that we live in, so we need to be aware of that. That being said, there's so much that you can do on your own to get rid of them. I posted a little bit about that today. I have a fantastic video on my YouTube channel that just covers the basics of everything. So I won't go into it here, although I have done lives where I've specifically sat down and gone over every piece of it. I'll do that again probably next month. But what I want us to talk about today were a couple of random things. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was a lady that follows me that I've been talking to for a while. Um, she had fibroids. She recently had her surgery, her myomectomy, and I I think it's been about maybe 6 weeks to 2 months now at this point that she's been in recovery, and everything was fine, and she's off all her medication and everything. And she a few days ago started having these crazy pains in her legs and her feet. And, you know, as so many of us do, we get symptoms to things and we start Googling, which I don't have anything against per se, but that's what she did, just so you know the story. And she started to see all these links between fibroids and fibromyalgia. We talked about it a little bit. And, you know, I definitely wanted to support her through that. I recommended that she go see her doctor because there are lots of different reasons why that pain could exist. So you do need some diagnostics. So, okay. Before I get into the nitty gritty, I want to just talk about my own personal background. I am a holistic healer. I am a health coach. That's what I do. And I do a lot of other things too, but that's primarily what I do. And I got into it over the course of a lifetime. I'm also a trained biochemist. I have a degree in biochemistry. So I've got the hard science, but I've also got the holistic learning. I'm actually going to hopefully next year study to become an herbalist. I truly believe in the power of natural healing, the power of the body to heal itself, and the power of being able to really take control of your health. That being said, I feel like in 2017, there's this disconnect between holistic healing and being natural versus Western medicine. And there's a reason to have that rift, no question about it. There is a reason for that rift. Hold on, I'm going to mute my computer. There's a reason for that rift. However, here's what I want people to take away. Natural healing is fantastic. That is ideal. Where Western medicine wins is, of course, not pharmaceuticals. It's, of course, not fighting with doctors. It's diagnostics. That's where Western medicine wins. Testing, imaging, things like that, that's where it wins. So imagine if you take the most powerful elements of Western medicine and you marry them with the most powerful elements of natural healing. Now you are in complete control of your health. So I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, just get into that place of, Western medicine is terrible and, you know, oh my gosh. No, use it for its strengths. Take what you need and move on. That's what I really want to teach, because I know there's a lot of gurus and people on the internet who are doing the most. I'm going to talk about that too, because I had the craziest video that somebody sent me today, and I was just like, oh my God, they're killing people. So back to the story with the lady. So I recommended she go to the doctor. I want her to get tests run, obviously. Pain is not cool. But I wanted to talk about why there is a correlation between fibromyalgia and fibroid removal surgery. So the correlation is not in the fibroid removal surgery per se, although I've read a couple of papers and abstracts today in the scientific community that talk about a higher incidence of uterine, what they call events. So fibroids, cysts, things like that. So they're saying that in people who already have fibromyalgia, women who already have fibromyalgia, there's a higher incidence of uterine events. So what about a person who just had fibroids and then they're developing fibromyalgia? Well, you have to remember that fibromyalgia from the medical community, I want to read this actually to everybody so that you understand, because fibromyalgia is a little bit complex. And actually, it was not really considered a real disease until fairly recently. So it's important. Now, I'm going to put this out there. I hope nobody is offended in what I'm going to say. But fibromyalgia is traditionally looked at as a white woman's disease. I'm going to put it out there because it's true. So that's also another reason why correlations and links between things that affect women of color and things that affect white women they're not mashing up. This is a reason. So just be aware of that. So, a doctor wrote up this whole thing about fibromyalgia, and he was saying that fibromyalgia is a systemic neuroendocrine condition with, among other things, a disrupted adrenal hypothalamus pituitary axis. We don't need to get into that. He says that it's non-progressive, non-degenerative, and non-inflammatory. It is responsible for diffuse body-wide pain, tender points that hurt but don't refer pain, and sleep disturbances. Fibromyalgia is traditionally comorbid with what's called chronic myofascial pain syndrome, or MPS, which affects people with trigger points. I have a close friend, if you've watched my IG Lives before and you've seen my friend and I kind of have our conversation on IG Live, she has fibromyalgia and MPS. So she's definitely an expert in it. But what I will say from a scientific standpoint is that while fibromyalgia in your body doesn't contribute to inflammation, I would dare say that a large cause, and okay, again, this is my theory now, based on my knowledge. It looks to me and to others in the scientific community, but it hasn't been straight proven yet, that fibromyalgia has a very strong inflammatory link for causation. And you'll notice that if you've seen these types of things before, fibromyalgia tends to affect people, not just women, but people who have gone through a traumatic physical event. This means large-scale surgery, car accident and repair, major bone muscle injury. For instance, Lady Gaga has fibromyalgia. It didn't start to present itself until after she broke her hip. So there is a link of people getting major surgery, and fibroid removal is a major surgery, and suddenly presenting with fibromyalgia. It's not something that, like I said, there's no real incidence statistics yet. So I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, it happened. It happened to me. It did not happen to me. I had my surgery in 2014. It did not happen to my friend. She already had fibromyalgia. But it's possible that can happen. So I wanted to put that out there, especially for those of you who may be... Thank you. Your comment just popped up. Smooth skin, genetics, and water. And natural face scrub that I've been using. And I've been scrubbing my face with natural scrubs for, since I was like 10. My grandmother was a beauty queen in her country in Guyana, and she made me go through a very rigorous skin routine when I was very small, and I kept it up for most of my adult life. So I've been blessed and thankful, because sometimes my skin freaks out, but it's short-lived, so I'm blessed in that capacity. Hang on one second, I'm reading comments. You were diagnosed in 2012. All of your symptoms mirrored lupus. Yep. And what I've read, too, in some of these scientific papers is that they like to give hysterectomies to people who have inflammatory diseases as well as fibromyalgia. So let's look at it from the other way. So I have a friend who has lupus back home in New York, and they have suggested to her, she had her child, and I don't think she plans to have another, but they've suggested to her several times that she should have a hysterectomy to prevent something from happening. Because at the end of the day, all disease really stems back to inflammation. And I'll explain why. So when you get a disease, or when you get I'm trying to think of a good example. When you get the flu, right? Flu, influenza is a virus. By the way, just so you know, the flu is caused by several different types of viruses and also one strain of bacteria. They don't give you all the facts. But if you sit through enough science courses and enough grad science courses, you learn all this stuff. Anyway, so if you get the flu, right, and your fever spikes to 102, that's not, while your body you're having this reaction, it's not the flu that's causing the fever. Your body is causing the fever. Your immune system causes the fever. Fever is an inflammatory immune response. So the symptoms of disease that we see, pain, fever, sneezing from allergy, skin rash, itching, these are all inflammatory reactions of your body to something, whether it's a virus, whether it's a bacteria, parasite, anything foreign. So in understanding that, we understand that the root of disease is really inflammation. If you have abnormal cells growing in your body, whether cancerous or not, so now we bring it back to fibroids, you have abnormal cells growing, that growth causes inflammation because your immune cells are quickly trying to react to this growth of unwanted cells. The inflammation comes from these chemicals called cytokines that your immune cells release to communicate with each other and to cause certain things to happen in your body, like the raising of your body temperature, for example, or pain. So when we learn in school as kids, we learn pain comes from your nerves. What makes your nerves signal in that way, though? That's the question. And we're coming to understand in 2017 with the type of science that we have now that, of course, your brain plays a huge role. Of course, your nerves play a huge role. But the signaling comes from your immune system to recruit and signal through those cytokines, nerve cells, to send signals to your brain to quickly interpret them and to shoot it back down to pain. So you think about the worst pain that you can have that is not life-threatening. The pain of stubbing your toe on the corner of your bed where you feel like you're going to die. That's nanoseconds of signaling that goes on. But the reason is your immune cells that are in that area of your skin go, oh my God, there's a trauma. And they release all these cytokines. And those cytokines hit your nerves. And the nerves send impulses all the way up your body into your brain. And your brain says, oh my God, there's trouble in the foot. It's pain. And sends a response all the way back down to your foot. And then your nerve fires. And now you feel like you're going to die because the pain is horrible. That's how your body works. So all disease is rooted in inflammation. And so fibromyalgia, for example, is rooted in inflammation as well. And that is the reason why, I don't know if you've noticed when you're watching TV, you see all these commercials for these drugs. It treats fibromyalgia, or it treats, what's the other one? The skin disease, psoriasis, right? These are inflammatory diseases, and the drugs that they're advertising are monoclonal antibody drugs. These drugs mimic part of what some of your immune cells release. That's why they're dangerous and have all those side effects, because they can just as easily attack your own body cells, and suddenly you have an autoimmune disease. That's how these things work. I went so far off topic. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I just have a lot in my head today. So that's what I wanted to really say about fibromyalgia. I personally, like I said, have not experienced it, thank God, but I know people who have it, and I know how hard and difficult it is. And it's important to understand that there is a connection. We don't know how strong the connection is between that and fibroids. We don't really know where that will lead, but it's definitely something that, we need to think about too. Yes, many do internalize high levels of stress, and high levels of stress also can cause a lot of inflammation too. So when you think about your body as an entire system, and we talk about what holistic really means, it's all aspects of your life. You can cause all sorts of inflammatory disturbances by overworking yourself. You can cause that by working out too much. Like, I know when I'm doing, 2-hour workouts a day, at some point I need to get some real sleep. 7 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, not going to cut it. Like, I need to sleep, which actually might be tonight. But yes, high level of stress is very important. And high levels of stress contribute not just to an event to the level of fibromyalgia, but it does contribute to the growth of your fibroids too. So yes, we can take the right herbs. We can change our diet. We can exercise. But if you're under high levels of stress, also, your fibroids will continue to grow because of the added inflammation that's happening. Because your immune cells are trying to fight against these growing cells. But if you're adding more inflammation, it confuses the signaling that's going on in your body. That's literally what it is. So obviously there are situations in life that we can't control, in which there is high stress. If there's a death, if there's a sudden move, there's a divorce, things like that. We can't control those things. But, overworking yourself, you have a say in that. You do. So yes, traumatic experiences. Yes, absolutely. Both physical and emotional, psychological. Absolutely. The physical ones in particular seem to be the ones that are manifesting as fibromyalgia and pain syndromes too. Just want to differentiate and throw that out there a lot. And as I was talking to my friend about it earlier, I wanted to bring this up too, just in this conversation. She said something to the effect of, well, why is this happening? Why is this, why now they're talking about this? And I said, what's interesting? I said 50, 60 years ago, if someone got into a car accident and they were badly injured and they had some type of surgery to repair the damage, the people in their life or the people in their community would look at them and say, okay, they survived and they had the surgery, but, Johnny may never be the same again. Like, yeah, he can walk with a cane, but Johnny, he's never going to be the same. Johnny's suffering from a lot of pain and blah, 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 blah. that was expected. It was expected that someone who went through a traumatic surgery or a traumatic, physical thing, they were never going to be the same again after the correction if they survived at all. And the reality of it is now we take these surgeries for granted because our doctors are not telling us how traumatic they are, and because they don't want to freak people out and they want people to still do it, right? Like, let's be honest for a second. A myomectomy, which I have had and others on this forum right now have had, is basically a C-section. That's a big surgery. They slice you open from side to side. And if your fibroids are on the inside, they're going into your uterus to get them out. If they're on the outside, fortunately mine were on the outside, they're still scraping and doing things to the outside of your uterus. That's your internal organs. It's a big deal. So we need to just consider that in, framing and understanding how you can end up with this major pain disorder because you chose to have a surgery. Now, I'm not saying this to say don't have the surgery if you need it. I'm saying this to say I like people to have facts. That's so important for me. Hold on, I'm reading comments. Yes, I read one today actually also about women who've been abused as children that ended up with fibromyalgia later. It's almost like from a psychological standpoint, and of course now we're getting way off topic, but from a psychological standpoint, it's almost like they have internalized their pain so deeply that the pain becomes manifest. And that's a horrible thing to see. Like, if I ever work with somebody who has that particular situation, it's going to break my heart because it's just so visceral and also angering. Like, I'm a kid, I'm a person, I'm an adult now, obviously, but I'm a kid who suffered abuse. Fortunately, it was not sexual, but I suffered abuse my whole childhood. And I'm very fortunate that it didn't turn into a whole bunch of other things that it could have turned into. But, it breaks my heart for somebody who's gone through that. And then on top of it, it's like insult to injury. That's what it is. That's what I want to say about it. Yeah. It's horrible. And it makes me angry. So these types of things are why I do what I do and why I speak out so much. Because all we got is each other, for real, in terms of information. We have a president telling a mother of a soldier who died in combat he knew what he signed up for. This is where we're at, people. So if we don't have these conversations with each other and share, not just share, but vet information, we're going to be in trouble. And anything that I tell you, please look it up. Don't take my word for it. I'm big on that. I'm a scientist first, for real. And I share, and I can always share sources when necessary, but I want encourage everybody to look up and understand for themselves. Is it any surgery that can cause? Yes. So any surgery could theoretically lead to an onset, of fibromyalgia. It's the severity of the trauma to your body of the surgery. Because remember, your body's not really meant to be anesthetized for long periods of time. Your body's essentially metabolically shut off. Like, that's not really a normal state. Yes. Hi, Jess. I'm happy to see you. I'm thankful that you popped on. I'm excited for your book. I'm so excited. I'm excited to see you do that. And I'm excited to read it. Like, it's a whole other conversation, which I'm happy to have. We just can't have it right now. But to all who have suffered from fibroids, who have suffered from abuse, and fibroids, fibromyalgia, everything that we're talking about, I really have the biggest love for you all because, at the end of the day, we know in a way that maybe the average person doesn't. And that is something good or bad or indifferent. I don't know, but it's something. Hang on, I'm reading. You had a laparoscopic adrenal ooh, goodness. When did you have that surgery, Gordita? And you had your adrenals removed? So you're on hormone therapy then, right? That's rough. Hormone therapy is shitty. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Wow. If you feel comfortable enough, how old are you now? You had Cushing's. You want to know something? One of my senior projects was a whole case study on Cushing's. I know all about it. Wow, that's crazy. Well, we are happy to have you and have your experience in the pool here, because these are, like I said, these are serious things. I have a client I'm working with right now. It's a man. Looks like he has Graves' disease. And it's funny because I called it like a year ago, and now his doctors are starting to whisper it a little bit. You're 34, okay? You're 1 year younger than me. Yeah. We're going to have to do a whole conversation on hormone stuff and understanding your endocrine system. That's really important. And honestly, it is an important part of understanding fibroids too. So I'll definitely undertake that, because that's important too. I want people to really understand that relationship. It's going to be like science class up in here, folks. Full on. I'm going to make slides and everything. We're going to do this right. I want to segue into another conversation that happened today too. And I'm just here. I'm sipping my tea. This is Hawthorn tea. It's great for your blood pressure and your cardiovascular health. I use the Alvita brand, which is super clean. Just FYI. It's on my profile too. I had a stressful day, so. So another thing that happened is there's another woman I talked to who hit me up to ask me about this thing called MMS1. And I have, being a scientist, there's a million, acronyms for all different things. So at the first I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, tell me about it. So she tells me about, this guy who has this video, and he's talking about, you can heal everything with this stuff. And da 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 da. So she sent me the video, and I watched it, and I think I had like a thermonuclear meltdown inside my body. Okay? Here's why. This black guy is going on, ranting on Facebook Live, talking about how this particular compound that he figured out cures viruses, parasites, everything. Now, when you hear something like that and the claim is that big, I want you to start putting on the hat of being the skeptic. And here's why. Because, hold on. I'm reading. Sorry. Yes, cod liver oil was part of my protocol to shrink my fibroids, because cod liver oil is very rich in vitamin A. And vitamin A is a very supportive vitamin to your immune function, which can contribute to helping your immune cells actually break down the fibroid cells and get rid of them. Because remember, your system already recognizes them as abnormal. So there is going to be immune interaction where your immune cells are going to try to kill those cells. You want to make your immune system as efficient as possible. So cod liver oil is actually really important. And I know you are Germany, Amsterdam, somewhere in Europe. So being in Europe, I highly recommend the unfiltered brand 7Cs. I've been taking 7Cs since I was basically an infant. And it is the business. It is the truth and the light. My sister's probably on here and she can attest to that too. So Germany, yes, you should be able to find it. Even Amazon, UK, if you can get it. I don't know how Amazon works in Europe, but you can probably find it. It's really hard to find here because they lost something with their importing for United States, or just distribution. They lost it. So like I have to like go hill and dale and yonder to find it, which is annoying, but whatever. Separate story. Okay. So feel free to interrupt me. Just want to put it out there. Like, I'm not upset about it at all. I'm just collecting my thoughts. So back to my story. So this guy is saying that he created this compound called MMS1 because he thought that when he was a child, well, if the bottle of bleach says that it kills 99% of viruses and it kills herpes and HIV and all these things, then why don't we have some version of bleach that we can use in our bodies that don't kill us? I'm dead serious. He said this. Dead serious. So already I'm like, what the fuck, right? So I listen, and basically what he's doing is he's mixing citric acid in a 1:5 ratio with sodium chlorite. Now, if I don't know how many people took college chemistry, real quick, bleach is a compound called sodium hypochlorite. It's NaClO. That's what bleach is. Obviously, they add like bleach that has scent and stuff like that. They add stuff to it, but basic chemical bleach is NaClO. So they use sodium chloride by itself is used for water filtration systems. Like they use it a lot in third world countries when they need to deal with a small contaminated water supply. Hold on, I'm reading a question. Anemia will cause the hair loss. Fibroids themselves will not cause the hair loss. That's a side effect of severe. Well, even moderate anemia can cause hair loss. If you're talking about like hair breakage and some patchiness, that can even be moderate anemia. Severe anemia, depending on the person, can really, and how long it goes, can really cause some pretty serious hair loss. Yeah. And there is a post, there's several posts, I think, on my page that talk about really great things for anemia so that you don't have to just rely on your iron pills or the prescription iron pills, because those can rip up your system. You want iron that can actually digest well, but not only that, but you want to increase your iron uptake efficiency. So there is a supplement that does that. Liquid chlorophyll will do that. Separate conversation. If you need me to come back to that, I will. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so back to my story. So yes, we're talking about bleach. So he's mixing 1 to 5 parts citric acid and sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, like I said, is being used in water filtration, water treatment processes in third world countries. Now, it's not inherently toxic in small doses, of course not, because it's used to purify water. It's not. But here's the problem. He's telling people that this cures everything. I'm dead serious. He said herpes. He said HIV. He said all sorts of crazy things. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. He's telling people that he cured his mom's Hep C with this. Now, here's the problem, as I was explaining to the girl that I was talking to. Where do I start? So the first thing with people like this becomes a general thing. Oftentimes, like in the fitness community, people don't tell you everything that they did. So some company will say, oh, if you take these pills, you'll lose weight, right? And they'll show somebody who actually, let's say, take out the fake person. Let's actually say that the person that they're using as an example of success actually did use the product, right? And they're saying, oh, I love the product. It's like the teas. It's like the stupid detox teas, right? The celebrities. They may actually use the product and it may make them poop all over the world. That might be true. But they also have a private trainer and a private chef. And they're in that life. So, and you don't see that part of it. So naturally people attribute their success with their weight loss with their body with the tea. In the same way, these types of gurus, these fake woke people, don't even get me started, will, say, oh, I did this and I cured this and blah, blah, blah. They're not telling you what else they did. And that was the first thing I thought. It said you curing her of Hep C, you're decreasing her viral load of Hep C, but you're not telling people that you probably have her on an oil of oregano course 3 times a day, or you have her on B17 vitamin. Don't get me started about that. So that's a big thing. And that's a question that you need to add. When you hear these things, that's the first thing. What else is this person doing that I don't or can't see? That's the first thing, right? So now let's actually get into the science of it, why this stuff doesn't work. So citric acid, right? All citrus fruits have citric acid, with things like limes and, there's a lot of tropical fruits that have a high concentration of citric acid. He's showing us these mineral drops he bought from some company, which I'll address in a second. Okay, fine. So if citric acid is so important in curing Hep C, a person could just increase their citrus intake in their diet over a period of time, right? It's true. And then why do we need the water purification in our body? Now we're getting crazy. So here's what happens when you introduce these two things into your stomach. First of all, bleach is not an acid. Bleach is a salt, which means bleach neutralizes, right? So think about when you have gas and your grandmother tells you to take some baking soda, right? She tells you to take the baking soda because the baking soda neutralizes the acid. Your stomach is supposed to be at a pH of 1. Your stomach is literally your biggest immune defense because the pH is so low and so acidic that it will kill 99% of what comes into your body that might be there to hurt you. It's the 1% that gets through into your intestines and gets absorbed. That's the problem. So if you're neutralizing what's going on in your stomach, you're already like too much, you're already in trouble. And you find out that people who have a lot of gas and a lot of heartburn and they're taking a lot of Alka-Seltzer and antacids, they have really weak digestion because of that neutralization. So that's something to think about, right? Not to mention, you don't want to form any sort of bleach-like derivatives in your stomach and intestines. Here's why. And here's what I know this guy does not know, because now we're getting into molecular biology for a quick second. Your immune cells, right? And this is quite a few of them. There are many different types of immune cells, but a primary immune cell type is called your macrophage. Your macrophages are like the big game hunters. They patrol and they will grab, if you get a bacteria in your body, they'll go and fight this thing and they'll literally eat it. There are other cells that work with your macrophages that release a chemical or a series of chemicals that will cause the bacteria cells to break open, right? So one of those compounds is called superoxide or a SOD, right? SOD is a derivative that comes from sodium chloride. So if you have too much sodium chloride running around your system, you're creating a situation where you have a lot of SOD building up. And once anything that is potentially hazardous, that's in your blood, mind you, in your blood, not in tissue, but in your blood, is neutralized and destroyed, it's going to start attacking your natural cells, your regular cells, your body cells, right? So let's think about that. Why does that matter when it comes to parasites? That matters because parasites ain't floating around your bloodstream. Parasites form what's called cysts. And these cysts burrow into your tissue, like your intestines, for example. And they can sometimes last up to 30 years. They burrow into your tissue. So how is something that's going to be circulating in your blood going to affect a parasite, right? He talked about viruses. First of all, viruses are not all the same. Hepatitis B is not the same type of virus as hepatitis C at all. They are different classes completely. The reason why they're called Hep B and Hep C is because back in the day when they were discovered, doctors didn't understand the things that they understand now. Technically, hepatitis B and C should have completely different names because they're completely different viruses and types, and they function differently and all of that. So he's talking about, oh, this can cure herpes. Herpes is a virus, and I'm talking about all the simplexes. So that's chickenpox, cold sores, herpes STD, Epstein-Barr virus, all of those, right? Herpes, the virus intercalates its DNA into our DNA. So if you have so when you're infected, it infects what's called a somatic cell or a body cell, so not like a sperm or an egg cell, right? And it literally inserts parts of its DNA into our DNA. So when that cell replicates and creates two cells, those two cells now have also two copies of the herpes virus, and so on and so on. And if you remember life science from 8th grade, you will remember that body cells replicate every 20 to 30 minutes. And that's how you end up with a viral load, and that's how you end up with a virus that's long-standing in your body. And it's only until something creates a flare with herpes that you have an episode. So how is your magic elixir reaching your body cells that have this infected DNA? I know that I have a specific amount of information that most average people are not privy to because of my educational background and what I chose to study and be in my life. I know this. What's interesting, and I was telling my friend, was that unfortunately, these hoteps, these woke dudes who literally parrot things they've seen from 20-year-old conspiracy theory YouTubes. Now, granted, the conspiracy theories as a whole might not be wrong. I'm not discrediting that because there's a lot of interesting things you can learn if you want to go down the rabbit hole, and they are absolutely true. However, these dudes are just parroting what they've heard, and they don't have any scientific background to back it up. And these types of videos and these types of people don't attract people who are in the scientific world who could refute them or even build the wealth of knowledge. I know that for me personally, I'm a damn unicorn, guys. I'm a holistic healer who's also who's a biological scientist, like trained. That's rare. But it makes me better at both jobs. That's why I chose to do that personally. But you don't find people like me who could come on and comment underneath these videos and break it all the way down for people, whether I agree or not. So I want to throw that out there in terms of, be skeptical when it comes to your health. That's what saves you. I'm all for trying things, but I don't try things unless there seems to be some real basis for the success. And you don't want to put things in your body that are toxic because some rando really tells you that they work. And don't fall for the skin color bait. Don't fall for the, we are, please. I'm so done with these woke people. I'm sorry. I'm just went on a whole rant. My bad. But I don't want to see people hurt. And I don't want to see people fooled. And I especially don't want people to see their money taken. Because I can guarantee you, in a month or two, if this guy has a big enough following, all of a sudden the product is going to come pre-mixed with his name on it. That's the next thing that's going to happen. And then what? Right? So, and the thing about it is, the type of toxicities that you can get from things like this, where you will need Western medicine to intervene for your ass, for real, it's not obvious. Like if you got damaged from that type of product, right? You ruined your intestinal lining. The doctors are not going to say, "Oh, well, what have you been taking?" Because it doesn't look like that. It won't present like that. They'll say, "Oh, you have an autoimmune disease that's eating through your stomach lining. You need to have surgery. You need to have this repaired." Our Western medicine is not concerned with cause, because you can't have treatment if you know the cause. And if you know the cause, you can have prevention. And prevention don't make no money. Real talk. So this is the world that we live in when we live in a pharmaceutical world. So I just wanted to put that out there. I probably sounded a mess. I was ranting when I saw the video earlier. My husband was like, "You should have just recorded that and put it on live." I was like, "Yeah, I know," because I was really tight about that. Because I'm sick and tired of seeing that stuff. And you know what else I see? I've seen these accounts on Instagram, this black woman in a head wrap talking about, "I can heal your fibroids with my herbal blend." What's in your herbal blend, boo? Seriously. Because I don't tell people and I don't recommend things unless I have firsthand knowledge of it. And I'm not saying that there's not well-meaning people who have sound products, because there are out there. There's no question. But you have to vet these things. And especially when you're dealing with fibroids, especially because so many things are tainted in our food supply and our herbal supply now. So when you buy certain things, you don't know where the herbs come from. If they're coming from China, you have bigger problems than whether it has soy in it. You know what I mean? So these are all things that we have to consider. And it seems like a lot. I understand that. It gets a little scary. It doesn't need to be. But my lesson here to share with everybody is you got to be smart. And don't fall for the late night Instagram scrolling, because that's where you get in trouble. Most people can discern pretty well, but at 2:00 in the morning when they're worrying or freaking out and they're scrolling, or they're searching hashtags and doing things like that, that's when you get into trouble. So you don't really want that to happen. I actually covered that pretty fast. I talk fast, I'm sorry. Especially when I get excited about something. So what time is it? It's 9:30. Well, I know you guys said a lot already, but let me hear from you guys. Let me take a break from running my mouth for a moment. You tell me what you think. Tell me what questions you might have. Tell me. I'm just going to sip this tea. And if any of you watch Love and Hip Hop, please DM me after this live. Trust me, it's good. And I will say something about watching Ratchet TV. I am what is called Ratchet, which means I'm really smart and really cultured and really well-traveled, but I also watch Ratchet. And the reason why I watch Ratchet is because for me, it's like going to the zoo, honestly. Dead serious. I even call it that. I tell my husband, I'm like, "Oh, Love and Hip Hop is the special event at the zoo." It is. That's my guilty pleasure. Everybody has theirs. No shame whatsoever. Thank you. I'm happy to be informative if I sound a little mad scientisty, because I go off on one of my rants, and I'm working on this because there are certain things I talk about and I expect people to know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's short. It's like, I think I have the link in my bio right now that will take you directly to the video about what you can take to shrink your fibroids and the information behind why these things work. That video I think is only like 7 minutes or something like that. But I have other videos on my channel about a couple of different things to check out. Yes, I rant. You know why? Because I really hate misinformation. I hate it because at the end of the day, it goes from foolishness to being actually malicious when you think about it. And when it comes to people's health, your health is the most valuable thing you have. More so than money, more so than anything else. Like, it is the most valuable thing that you have. So why are we playing around with people's ability to preserve it? And I asked that on a large scale with the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors and the surgeons. And I asked that on a small scale with, the fake woke dude on Instagram. And there are so many. Oh, yes, you do. I love your rants because you and I, we can go for hours if we wanted to. I wanted to actually, did you mention anything in the video for pelvic pain? Yes. I talked about so that pain can be strongly helped with a turmeric supplement because turmeric is extremely anti-inflammatory. There are other things that you can add in your diet as well that can help, which I do talk about. So I don't have fibroids anymore. I am fibroid free as of 2014. Managed to keep these beasts away, right? And so I eat a lot of ginger and I eat a lot of turmeric and I also take turmeric, both highly anti-inflammatory. I have a lot of pepper, that's anti-inflammatory. And there's other things that you can do as well. So the great part about natural healing and relying on food and herbs is if you don't like the taste of something, there's definitely something else that will help you, which is the cool part. The variety is incredible. Yes, I am passionate. I am passionate about it, especially for things that people don't know about. I'm just like, please, I want to help you. That's why when I started doing health coaching and health counseling, I made a promise to myself, and I've upheld it this far, that I don't charge people who have fibroids. It doesn't mean that I put it out there and advertise that, because then people will just be like, of course I have fibroids, but I wait and I listen. And when I know that they have it, I'm like, no, I'm not going to charge you for my services, because when I was going through the thick of it, I had nobody to talk to. And my mom, up until even recently, she won't talk about it. And my mom spent her whole 30s not even dealing with it. And it almost cost her life. So for me, it's important. Like, the information is free. You just might need to hear it from the right person, or need the right person to compile all of it for you. That's what I do. That's awesome, Kemi Poo. I juice it personally. That's just my preference, but tea is fantastic as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Ginger and turmeric save the world. It will. Absolutely. So, and it's interesting because a lot of people that were staunchly against natural healing are realizing that right now, especially the older generation, because they're presenting now with arthritis and things like that. And someone's telling them, yeah, your doctor wants to put you on these crazy drugs that have all these side effects, but you really could get down with a turmeric supplement. And these turmeric supplements are powerful. Family friend, her mom, I put her on the turmeric that I take, and it got rid of her arthritic pain. So, just to give you an idea of the power of these things and what they do. Oh my gosh, what was I going to say? There was one other thing I was going to tell you. Oh my God. Oh yes, I want to mention this. I'm not sure if the girl who I was having this conversation with is on right now, but she asked me, do you know anything about Dr. Sebi? Okay. For all of us black folks on the line, let's talk about Dr. Sebi. Okay. Dr. Sebi is a great man and a great healer. I'll start with saying that. The poor man is dead now. Recently. Not too recently, but recently enough. Okay. That's also true. There is a lot of misinformation I've noticed floating around the internet of things that Dr. Sebi approves, or Dr. Sebi said, or his approved food list. And guess what? It's not true. Now, that being said, here's the other thing. Dr. Sebi's way of treating disease works. His true way, right? There are other cultures on Earth and other healers on Earth, or who were on Earth, or are now on Earth as well, who use different methods and get the same results. Don't feel pressured by the wokes, especially as Black women. Oh, well, Dr. Sebi is the only way to go. Don't feel pressured. Don't feel pressured to go vegan either. That's a whole other conversation, but we don't feel pressured either. If that doesn't work for you, don't do it. I'm not vegan. I've gone vegan. I've spent parts of my time vegan. I tend to kind of, if I'm paying attention, really get into like a normal cycle of it because my body feels good. And it's just I eat intuitively personally. But don't feel pressured if it doesn't work for you. And if it does work for you, kudos, awesome, great. Love it. But don't feel like you need to do this. So I want to throw that out there real quick as well. Let me sip my tea. Kemi Poo. I have I have pictures on my profile, and I have videos on my YouTube with the recipes I use to juice ginger and turmeric. I make an anti-inflammatory juice that kicks ass. And it's really been extremely helpful. I came up with the recipe probably a couple months ago, playing around, and it works really well. I'm excited about it. What are my thoughts on electric foods that Dr. Sebi often spoke about? Yes, there are foods that are electric. I agree with that. But I think that perhaps he might be too stringent on this concept of what's a hybrid food and what's not. Because it's not fair to say that just because a food was bred to be a cross between two different types of food through regular farming practices that it's not valuable. And that happened. That's a big part of what has happened with his teaching. For example, the debate between limes and lemons. Lemons are useful. Lemons are good for you. Just because they're not on Dr. Sebi's list doesn't mean they're not. You know what I mean? Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. But yes, I think what I personally in my studies have taken away from him is really the overarching concept of keeping an alkaline diet. That's the important piece to really take from that. And just because foods aren't on his particular list doesn't mean that they don't fit the alkaline profile either. So I would consider that in what he teaches. If you look at the science of Ayurveda, which is Indian, which has been very successful in treating many diseases and preventing many diseases through the course of history, they have a whole different list, and they do it. Turmeric is not on Dr. Sebi's list, but it's clinically documented that it works, as an example. So I just want to keep that out there. It's really about, honestly, it sounds kind of crazy, but to a certain degree, it is about cherry picking the knowledge. Because every person who is, a real healer and is doing great work, they're doing it from their own lens, which is fantastic, but it's also limited, It's like a microscope. When I look in a microscope to look at some cells, I only see what's in my field. I can't see all the cells surrounding it unless I move the plate around. So we all, even myself included in my research, I only see from the lens that I know. My personal philosophy is for me to constantly work to expand my lens as much as possible and incorporate as much as possible, because every person at the end of the day is completely different. Your body chemistry is different. Your environmental stressors and motivators are different. So for me to be a good clinician and for me to be a good coach really comes from understanding that diversity and being able to speak to that diversity. And that's something that you can't achieve if you're only, stuck in one way of thinking, whether right or wrong, whether useful or not. So that's what I really want to say about Dr. Sebi. And especially just be careful in terms of what you find on Instagram. Because remember, the man is no longer here to speak for himself either. Yes, I know people post some of his lectures, and that's great to, of course, watch and stuff like that too. And he's on YouTube and whatnot. But I mean, the memes. I see a meme at least twice a day. And half the time they're wrong, and I know that they're wrong. So just consider that. I think we have 4 minutes left for the hour. So free for all, for those that are here, what y'all want to say? I'm glad we had this talk. I'm excited. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it today because I was really, really, really tired. But you want to know something? I've noticed, God's interesting because it's like I personally started to make like a pledge to myself that I would devote Wednesdays, not entirely, but I would post on Wednesdays about fibroids and about health. And I started doing that, and I wasn't really that consistent, but I started doing it. And so this morning, from the moment I woke up until like right before this live, I've been getting DMs and calls and Facebook Messenger and all these different things, asking me questions, talking to me. What do you think about this? Da, da, da. And it's been nonstop all day. And it's been great, but it's been like, wow, yo, the universe knows what I'm trying to do. So that's exciting. Just want to throw that in there. Thank you for your feedback. I mean, this is the type of stuff that I feel like, honestly, people need to be talking about, and they're not. And, you can't just get on somebody's comment thread and just start acting crazy and asking questions. People get all bent out of shape and want to jump on you. So it's nice to be able to have a forum where we can talk about this stuff and kind of parse it through, It's important. I'm gonna knock out after this, y'all. I'm tired. What you gotta say, Copper Sun Goddess? I know you have something to say. You always have something to say. I will make sure I didn't miss anybody's comment. No, I think I got everybody. Yeah, it is important. It is important. I don't want, like I said, misinformation is a killer. It really, really is. Like, I don't want to see anybody suffer from that, especially when you're dealing with something like fibroids. You can't play around because there are a lot of things that stimulate the growth of the fibroids. If you don't know your information, you're not getting it from a reputable source, you're going to have a problem. So you don't want that to be the case. Thank you. So, for those of you that don't know, I'll just throw this out there. This is not a plug, but my friend just popped this up, so I'm going to talk about it for a second. So, I'm a person who, like I said, I am a scientist. I'm also a health coach. But I own several businesses because I do. I like being creative and I like contributing. And one of my companies is an all-natural perfume company that it's completely based on essential oils, so it has no chemicals in it that cause endocrine disruption. I was a huge perfume junkie all my life. In Sephora every Friday when I got paid. And the thing about it is those perfumes that we love so much have chemicals in them that can kill you, for real. And they can make your fibroids grow too. And that was a big thing. So I started my company right after I had surgery. I was just playing around. I've been using essential oils for years. And I was playing around just making scents that I liked in my house. And my mom was like, listen, these are amazing. She gave a couple of vials to her friends. And it kind of started from there. So that one is called Perfect Blue Alchemy. And it has its own Instagram because it's a legit business. I've been in business now for about 2.5, 3. Wow. Yeah, 3 years. 3 years. And we are going to be launching new products before the holidays. I'm excited about that. That's one of the things I do. And the newest venture is just being an artist. I love waist beads. I love beading. It's great. It de-stresses me. So I started making waist beads, and my sister was like, we need to put these up on Instagram, let people see them. They need to buy these. So I let her kind of be the person behind that, and I just create, and it's awesome. So that's what my friend posted, Waist Beads by Fit Fighter. That's me. If you like waist beads or you want a set, hit me up. I love the work that I do. I work in glass mostly. They're beautiful. You can wear them when you work out. You can wear them to sleep. So if you're interested, hit me up. but don't feel obligated because this is obviously not what this is about. All right, we're at the 10-second mark, so they're about to cut me off. I want to say goodnight. It was wonderful having all of you. We'll do this again next week. Have a wonderful